Greetings from the Alexandrina Council. Let's meet the driving force behind the Alexandrina community. Mayor Keith Parks, Deputy Mayor Councillor Margaret Gardner, West Ward, Councillor Bill Coomans, Councillor Lou Nicholson, Councillor Michael Scott, North Ward, Councillor Craig Maidment, Councillor Sue Miller, Councillor Christy Thornton, South Ward, Councillor Margaret Gardner, Councillor Milli Livingston, and finally, Councillor Peter Oliver.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Council meeting on the 21st of October. An audio recording of this meeting will be made for minute-taking purposes and will last the length of the open meeting. The audio file will be available on Council website after the draft minutes have been circulated. Tonight we have our Council members. Welcome to you all. We also have in attendance Stacey Bateson, Acting Chief Executive Officer, Matt Atkinson, Acting General Manager Community, Alan Harvey, General Manager Infrastructure, Tash Hunt, General Manager of Corporate, and other staff as required. And welcome to our media people up there in the corner. Welcome. And also to our gallery. We have an apology from our Mayor, Keith Parks. He is unwell. And so as Deputy Mayor, I'm taking his place tonight. So I hope you'll all be good. Shall we stand for the acknowledgement of traditional owners and our local government prayer? The Alexandrina Council and its communities acknowledge the Nudunjeri, the Peremank and Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of our council district. And our local government prayer, Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to grant thy blessings upon the works of this council. Guide us in our deliberations for the advancement and true welfare of the people of this district. Please, you may be seated. There is a declaration of interest. If a council member has an interest in a matter which will be before the council at this meeting, they are asked to disclose that interest to the council and provide full and accurate details of the relevant interest at the beginning of this meeting. Members are reminded they must also declare their interest and provide details at the time the relevant item arises for consideration. Council Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to declare a general conflict of interest at item 8.11, subsidiary annual reports, due to my employment. Because it's just receiving those reports, I will remain in the room, but I won't participate in the discussion on those particular items, and I will vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you. In addition to what Councillor Miller said, I'm on the board of the Adelaide Hills Regional Waste Management Authority, and again, it's only receiving the report, but I just want to acknowledge that I declare that I'm on that board. Thank you.
Thank you. And I too need to declare a conflict of interest. I'm the president of the Goolwa Community Centre, and as such in the confidential items, I have a material conflict and I will remove myself from the room. Oh, Councillor Coomans.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor or Acting Mayor, whatever you would prefer.
Councillor Coomans, whatever I say, you'll do whatever you want. So you go right ahead.
Excellent, excellent. I think I'll be declaring a general conflict in relation to item 7.2 and probably 11.1 in relation to the Surf Lifesaving Club, but I'll give the details later.
Okay, we have, Councillor Livingston.
Sorry, I have a material conflict of interest for item 8.11 and I will be doing my employment and I will be leaving the room.
Thank you. We now are down, if there are no further conflicts of interest, down to confirmation of minutes. There are 3 recommendations. I think we'll do them separately. It won't take long. Councillor Miller?
I'm happy to move.
Thank you. You're moving. Councillor Maidment is seconding. All those in favour, raise your hand. Against? That's carried. Recommendation 2. That was unanimous. Thank you. Recommendation 2, that the minutes of the special meeting held on the 26th of September be received as a true and correct record. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Maidment. Thank you. Seconding, Councillor Oliver. All those in favour? Unanimously. Thank you. And recommendation 3, that the minutes of the resumption of the adjourned Alexandrina Council meeting of the 16th of September, which was held on the 14th of October, be received as a true and correct record. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Miller. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Maidment. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Right, we are now down to the adjourned debate, which is item 2, and I will ask our acting CEO to help us out here.
Thank you, and I'm going to ask our General Manager Corporate to explain why this is before you.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, we have brought this item back to you because we received some advice to say it was not a lawful motion. So the reason being really is because it had some substantial details which should have been a motion by itself within the formal motion that we couldn't do. So our advice was we need to bring that back to the agenda as it was adjourned to the next meeting of Council, which we are doing today. So how this works is it kicks off exactly where you were. So we do have a mover of the motion as well as a seconder. There are no councillors that have spoken to it. We'll take off in the debate. And I'll just remind council members that this report was regarding a Section 270 review on a previous council decision. So what the motion before you is doing is noting that review by the independent law firm, which they found it was a lawful and the decision was preferable. And then the second part that has been moved is affirming that decision as a preferable decision. I'll pass back to the Mayor.
Thank you. So we have a motion before us, and maybe would you mind, Acting CEO, reading that out to us so we are very clear what that motion is?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So what we have here is a motion as adjourned debate from 16th of September 2024, item 8.6, Section 270 Review Report, Ratalang Basham Beach Conservation Reserve. It was moved by Councillor Lou Nicholson and seconded Councillor Bill Coomans. That council, 1, note the Section 270 Review Final Report, Ratalang Basham Beach Conservation Reserve, in Attachment 1, contained in this meeting agenda from Norman Waterhouse Lawyers, which concludes the decision C23328 is lawful and the decision is the preferable decision. Number 2, affirms the decision C23328 as the preferable decision.
Thank you. So we are now down to a debate, if you prefer. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I just have 2 questions before I debate. Has any communication occurred with the applicant regarding the status of their review application and it being on the agenda last meeting and now again this meeting? And will the applicant be written to advising of Council's decision tonight?
Can someone help us out, please?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'll pass that to General Manager Corporate.
Thank you, and I'm going to have to pass to the Manager of Governance and Communications.
Through the Chair, yes, the applicant of the Section 270 review was informed that it went to Council at the last Council meeting. No update has been given to the applicant with it returning to this Council meeting. Depending on the decision and outcome from tonight's meeting, they will be given an update. They weren't updated of the previous decision as they were in the room for that debate and the decision made.
Councillor Miller.
I'd like to propose an amendment, Your Worship, to add point 3, and I can send the words, they're very simple. That point 3 be added, that is, keep the applicant informed as to the outcomes and recommendations, if any, of the review to be undertaken by the Council's compliance team of the maintenance plans to ensure fire prevention is considered.
Sorry, could you please read that again just a little bit slower? Yeah. Councillor Miller, thank you.
I've just emailed it. Keep the applicant informed as to the outcomes and recommendations, if any, of the review to be undertaken by the Council's compliance team of the maintenance plans to ensure fire prevention is considered. And I'm happy to speak to that amendment, Acting Mayor, if I may.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Councillor Nicholson, who moved the original motion, is not here, and I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that she'll be here at 7:30. So we can't actually go back and ask her if she'd like to. Sorry.
Through the Chair, what Councillor Miller is asking for is an amendment.
Yep.
A variation couldn't be done if the mover was not here, but an amendment could potentially be done. What the Mayor would need to do is to consider this motion, whether it is acceptable under the principles of the Local Government Act. I would like to understand whether, I can't see it on the screen right now, can you scroll? The review that's to be undertaken by Council's team, is that a previous decision that has already been made by Council?
May I speak to my amendment, because I can explain why I'm asking this? Thank you.
Go ahead.
We must be mindful of the potential fire risk to Pleasant Banks. It is surrounded on 3 sides by the Conservation Park. I accept there is no legal obligation to consult with the owner of Pleasant Banks, but I do think we have a moral, good neighbour obligation, especially given the 2 deputations and considerable correspondence. On page 30 of the agenda at 8.1.2 is the acknowledgement that neither the applicant nor the close neighbours were consulted on the decision to remove this aspect of the European farming cultural component of the land. It also states the general public have not been notified of the plan to remove the rural farming heritage component from the reserve. In my mind, these are relevant oversights, and I thank my colleagues for supporting my motion last meeting. The report also notes on page 32 that Council has not undertaken any fire prevention activities since January 2024, apart from slashing on 13th of March. I look forward to, and the decision that was originally reviewed had, I'll keep reading it. I look forward to seeing the compliance team's detailed maintenance plans to ensure fire prevention is considered, particularly around Pleasant Banks. That is, after all, what the resolution made the native grasslands proposal subject to, along with more detailed financial analysis and, I would hope, transparent procurement processes. So the question or the decision that was being queried by this section 270 had about 6 parts to it, and they're in the agenda, and one of them was about fire prevention and a plan being put together by the compliance team. So it is a decision of council, but to my knowledge, nobody's seen that assessment. I do foreshadow that I do intend to bring forward a motion on notice to the November council meeting revisiting my technically flawed formal motion, but in the interim I'm proposing this amendment just to simply keep the applicant informed. It is not querying anything else, just to keep the applicant informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. So you've moved that. Do I have a seconder to that amendment? Thank you, Councillor Thornton. Okay, so what we need to do now is vote on the amendment. We are not voting on the whole motion, we are just voting on that amendment. So all those in favour, please raise your hand. Against? That's carried. Thank you. So the whole motion now is the 3 points. So all those in favour and against? Then that's carried. Thank you. We now come to petitions, and we have a petition from the Goolwa Community Centre. Oh, no, we haven't. We've got one before that. We have a presentation from Wendy Johnson, who wishes to make a deputation regarding Lot 4, Landseer Rd Milang. So Wendy, welcome.
Thank you very much.
You have 5 minutes. Do you need any more time, or can you?
No, I don't, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Firstly, just like to thank Council for the opportunity for myself as the landowner adjoining Lot 4 Landseer Road to say a few words in relation to the proposal to incorporate Lot 4 Landseer Road with the existing title of the boundary. So as owner of 25 Landseer Road, we've made a request and been in communication with Council since 2021 to either look at purchase or leasing of the narrow strip of land between our property and the Naragi Conservation Reserve. The land was being maintained by the Council but unused by any residents or local groups. Our request is to incorporate the land into our existing title and remove the burden with respect to fire load reduction management, weed and pest control. Our intention is to complete all boundary fencing requirements at our cost and maintain the land in line with the local area and council approach to plantings and town revegetation and aesthetics. So I really do appreciate the work that council is doing in the Milang area and Alexandrina Council, and we want to, I suppose, further grow and sustain that within our own property. We intend to maintain grass and vegetation growth in accordance with the fire control requirements and improve ground coverage to prevent erosion of soil, being very sandy down there. Increase native plantings and provide bird habitat and corridors, as well as maintain the boundary nature strip areas and fence lines with the Naragi Trail. We intend to improve the aesthetic appearance of the nature strip and the land area. So at the moment being very unused, although it is being maintained, which we're grateful, it's not being maximised as far as its use and appearance. The sale of land would offer council revenue and reduce ongoing operational expenditure for maintenance. It would also offer the community and users of the Naragi Trail an aesthetically pleasing view and rural aspect. Additional native plantings will offer native wildlife habitat further and improve the landscape. Vermin control will also reduce land erosion and competition with native wildlife. Fencing will be maintained in a safe and structural manner so as not to pose hazards to people or wildlife. Vegetation loads will be maintained and trees will be pruned and trimmed to maximise both growth and health. Our current land is a lifestyle property, so we're on the edge of town. We do run a few horses for personal pleasure and grass management, but we very much enjoy the rural aspect of Milang and wish to maintain this aspect for residents and visitors. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council members? Councillor Maidman.
Yes, we've had a look at the community engagement outcomes, and there was some people there that said that we should maintain this as a corridor for wildlife.
Yes.
What you've just suggested is you're going to do that yourselves. That's really fantastic. But my question is, there is no access for the general public to that particular land other than on the Naragi Trail. Is that correct?
That's correct. There is a gates, but they are locked at present. So there's no general access there. And
Okay.
there's a broken down fence line.
All right, okay. That'll be reinstated.
Absolutely. We would do that at our cost.
Any further questions? Councillor Scott.
Just in relation to the vegetation,
Yes.
there was concern expressed at one stage that that might be sort of allowed to degrade and wind down. You'll maintain that?
Absolutely, and I think with the native vegetation, we've experienced the same on our property. If we don't actively maintain it, we've had a case of overgrowth and natural vegetation then exceeding and dying. So our objective is to maintain pruning of that vegetation, especially the native, as well as increase it in that area. So in line, I'm actually part of a member of the Narigi Trail as well, so very much in line with what the committee there are doing. We like to do that on our own property.
Any further questions? Wendy, thank you very much for coming tonight. It's great to have you here and to hear your plans for that area should council choose to go ahead with the plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity as well as the ongoing communication with council around this matter. Appreciate it.
We now come to 4 petitions. Goolwa Community Centre. The recommendation is that council receive the petition and that it be forwarded to the Community Division for assessment and respond to the head petitioner. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Livingston, and second, Councillor Maidman. All those in favour? Against? Then that's carried unanimously. We're coming now to 4.2, the draft South Coast Growth Strategy, and a recommendation that council receive the petition, noting that it has been forwarded to the Community Division for consideration as part of the consultation on the draft South Coast Growth Strategy. Thank you. You're moving, Councillor Livingston. Seconder? Oh, gosh, a race. We'll take you, Councillor Oliver. Thank you. You've seconded. All those in favour? Against? Then that's carried unanimously. We now come to 4.3, the draft South Coast Growth Strategy, and there's a recommendation that council receive the petition, noting that it's been forwarded to the Community Division for consideration as part of the consultation on the draft South Coast Growth Strategy. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Miller, and seconded Councillor Scott. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Then that again is moved unanimously. We are now up to questions with notice, and there are a number of them, but there's one from Councillor Sue Miller about car parking fund. And you will note that these are answered by council staff. 5-4 from Councillor Miller, Unsealed Roads, Cross and Rodwell in Woodchester. Councillor Sue Miller, 5-5, council land at 22-24 South Terrace, Strathalbyn, temporary car parking. And that again has been answered. We are now up to questions without notice. Are there any? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I just have a question on my question at 5.1 where I asked, is there a weed and vermin problem in Ratalang? And the answer said that the master plan says how that will be managed, but it didn't actually answer my question. And I've been asking this question regularly, but I can't seem to get anybody to acknowledge, apart from the committee in their minutes, that there is a problem with... So I just wanted to note that I didn't actually... The answer I didn't think was adequate to my question at 5.1.
So, Councillor, you're asking for an answer to that now?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll hand to the General Manager Infrastructure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. Through the Deputy Mayor. It is an open space. Therefore, we manage weeds and we manage pest species on that site. So like any other open space, we manage it with those two principles in mind. So the answer to your question is yes, like any other open space.
Thank you. We have a notice of motion, so we're up to 7, agenda item 7. Oh, before we move on to that, are there any other questions without notice? Councillor Scott.
I did have one quick one, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And it's in relation to the toilets, and I have raised this in the past. And I noticed in relation, excuse me, to the Mount Compass one, I think there was a budget item of $250,000 for the toilets at Mount Compass. And if this goes on across the district, and we will be replacing them, it's going to become a major budget item. And I just am concerned that it appears that we are not embracing the concrete toilets that are available for infinitely less than $250,000, which do very good service, last for a long time, and you know, are budget friendly. You can get a 4-berth for about $52,000 delivered, and just needs to be bedded in and water out, obviously, and power, but everything else is available, and that's a big difference from $250,000. If we were going to add another $50,000, which is very extreme for fitting it in, we're still going to be $150,000 better off. But I'm getting out of my question. My question was, why can't we engage with these people and work our procurement tender in such a way that we can capitalise on those cheaper units?
Thank you, Councillor Scott.
Thank you. I'll hand to the General Manager Infrastructure.
Thank you, and I'll ask the Manager Assets to take that question, please.
So there's nothing stopping those people from putting tenders in. I have spoken with them recently. The figures you're quoting are correct for the delivery of that unit and that shell. that still needs ground preparation, transport, wastewater engineering, any ancillary pathways, hand washing, drinking fountains, etc. So we can absolutely look at those. We can. I'm not sure what we do to get those people to tender. They're not putting tenders in at the moment. I'm not really sure what else to tell you.
Thank you. You happy with that?
Well, perhaps I could talk afterwards with the said staff, and
sounds like a
there
good
is a
idea.
way around it, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Livingston.
Do we have any update on the formal opening of the wharf, or are we still talking to funding stakeholders?
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, we're still chasing up the federal ministers to ask if they are happy with that date, and as soon as we know yes or no, we'll update council members. Thank you.
Councillor Coomans.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. No, Deputy Mayor. I did ask a question, and it was on the agenda tonight in relation to the cost of the Mount Compass toilet, and it came back at $250, which is what Councillor Scott was talking about. But one of the part of that answer was also to investigate a separate report about a connection between the rec park and Burgess Oval, and the wording is in due course. The cricket season is about to start, so can we get an indication of when the in due course what that actually means?
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, General Manager Infrastructure.
Thank you, through the Deputy Mayor. We will bring that to the next council meeting for consideration. The team at the moment are just bringing together some level of estimate to be able to inform you as a group about what that might look like.
Any further questions without notice? If not, we'll move to item 7, notices of motion, and we have one from Councillor Oliver about change in banking services provider. Do you want to speak to it?
Yes, please, just briefly. In recent times, we've seen a mass exodus of local branches and local jobs by the big banks while they have made record corporate profits. Deputy Mayor, I ask, have they put profit before people and profit before community? The local community Bendigo Bank provides an alternative core community service that should be supported. It has maintained and expanded its shopfronts, provides local jobs, offers local competition, and importantly, financially supports local community projects and organisations. It is a long time since our banking arrangements have been reviewed, and our purchasing policy now favours local providers, and this is a credible local provider. This is only asking for a report, and everything has to check out and follow due process. This is a great opportunity to support a local bank that supports the local community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Is there a second to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Maidment.
Can I speak to that, please?
You may do so.
I can't say much more than what Councillor Oliver has already said. It makes a lot of sense, and it's asking for a report, so it's of no consequence to us at this present time, but it could give us a lot of savings and the community benefit which flows from that. So well done for putting this up, Councillor Oliver.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Oliver, Coomans.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, I have a really high regard for the Bendigo Bank. I know how active they are in my own community, and in fact all of the communities in giving back to sporting and social groups. I'm just wondering whether this is a bit too restrictive though, because we're asking for a report, but it's to change the provider to the local Bendigo Bank, and I'm wondering whether it really should have been broadened out, because these sorts of things should be open tenders, not specifically to one bank, because I expect that the report will come back and probably won't be what we are looking for, because it really should be an open tender. All banks should be considered. They all have, they bring different benefits, and I know of other banks who also support the community, and in fact I've been part of that in years gone by, where there's been significant donations and support in events and what have you. So if this was broadened to perhaps include other banking services as well, I'd certainly support it, but being so restrictive, I can't support this.
If you speak, Councillor Rodwell, you'll close the debate. Councillor Scott.
Look, I commend my council colleague for raising this, but in reality, my concern, I would love to see it happen, but in reality, I've tried to get another state organisation to bank with them, and the facilities they provide are not extensive enough to cater for the requirements of the organisation. And I fear that the local branch may not be able to do that. But I fully support us seeing if we can. Let's give it a try, and if we can't, they may have to go to Bendigo bigger, Bendigo State or something like that, but at least support the philosophy of what they're doing, because their impact and the benefits that they're providing to so many of our community organisations are nothing short of exceptional. So I'll support it, but I'd be interested to see the outcome.
Councillor Coomans, do you want to do a variation to the motion?
Look, I'm happy to do that, and the wording would simply change to other local banking organisations, something words to that effect. Maybe the acting CEO could assist.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, as per the officer's comments that are before you there, it does say that we would, in any change to a banking provider, we would need to go to open tender. So any report that we brought back would need to consider other banks anyway, just for noting.
Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Coomans, do you want to do the variation, or are you just throwing out some ideas?
Certainly not ideas. I think this is a damn important decision to make. The bank that the council uses, but the acting CEO is telling me that they would do that in any case because it's a requirement of open tendering for these sorts of services. And if that's the case, then it probably is covered, so it probably doesn't need a variation. But the important thing is there's not a focus on one bank only, that we do look and look at all of the available banking services to make sure that we get our best deal.
So you're saying we'll leave it as it is because you know very well that council staff are going to have a process, a detailed process, in fact coming up in the first half of 25, as I understand it. So, any further? Yes. Councillor Livingston and then Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I completely support this motion, and I just wanted to note that the local community bank has put over $1.7 million back into the community, is now a Fleurieu-based bank, and definitely has the support of Bendigo Bank Corporate. The only thing that I would ask is for a slight variation to the motion, with the approval of the mover and seconder, is that the last three words just being pedantic is that it is the Fleurieu Community Bank, as it is separate from Bendigo Bank Corporate.
Councillor Oliver, you're okay with that? And what about our Maidment? You're happy both with that variation? Okay, thank you.
The only other potential suggestion is that we hear from them, but I anticipate that might occur anyway in that process.
Can you help me out here?
Sorry, can you repeat that? We hear from them?
Hear from the organisation.
I assume that that would come through the tender submission process should they wish to submit.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I can only reiterate everything that Councillor Coomans said about this. The variation is neither here nor there to me. I would have thought this was an administrative decision that would be happening in the normal course of when a contract for banking services expires, that it would go out to tender. And so it's not that I don't agree with the motion, I just don't think it's needed. And I just think it's being so prescriptive like this to one bank when councils are complex beasts. It would be a matter of going out to tender. So everything that Councillor Coomans said, I actually can only repeat. And I'm voting against this not because it's Fleurieu Community Bank. I'm just voting against it because I think it's an administrative decision that the finance people would be doing anyway in their normal course of business. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Any other discussion on this? We'll take it to the vote. Do you want to speak again to this? Okay. So all those in favour of this motion, please raise your hand. And against? It's carried. Thank you. Now we come to 7.2, which is regarding the lifeguard services to Goolwa Beach. I'm wondering whether it would be a good idea to place this with the other confidential items that we have. Would you all be happy to move 7.2 to confidential items? Thank you. That's a big help. All right, we are now down to the administration reports, and the first one, this is item 8. 8.1 is Excelsior Parade Footpath, and there you have a recommendation that Council receives and notes the report. Approve a 2.5 metre wide footpath on the marina side of Excelsior Parade along the road edge, noting that this is not funded for construction in the 24-25 annual business plan and budget. Would someone please move this recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Miller. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Scott. Do we have anyone speaking for the motion or against the motion? No. Councillor Scott.
Quite a lot of work has gone into this, I appreciate. I'm still very critical of the fact that we have, as a council, have been left with picking this up, and that there has been no offer of contribution from the level of government that allowed the design to be made as it was, and not include a footpath in the beginning, which was a real oversight on their part. And however, the people that live there are ratepayers, and it is not a very wide road, and there needs to be a footpath on one side of the road or the other. And so I reluctantly seconded it because they're entitled to have a footpath, but I'm very, very critical of the way it's been done. The first design of the subdivision in the beginning that didn't include a footpath, and the fact that we now have to pick it up and try and get some outside funding to cover it. I hope we can get some supportive funding, but at this stage, as I say, it's unfunded and it's all back to us. So I'm pretty disappointed about that.
Thank you. Councillor Coomans.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I certainly agree that if we're going to put a footpath in Excelsior Parade, that it should go on the marina side. That's where the lighting is. That's where all the other cul-de-sacs feed off. So you would think that from a safety point of view, that's where you would put it. But I guess I go back a little bit in history. When we first bought our land in Hallett Cove, it was a development that had all services provided: the streets, the footpaths, everything that a development needs was provided. And then the owner of the land divided all those costs, and then we paid for that when we bought the land. So in other words, we pay 100% for the footpaths, for the sewerage, for the power, for the lighting, for the roads, the curbing, everything was paid for. When this particular one was set up, the idea was not to have footpaths. In fact, there are very few footpaths in this Hindmarsh Island development. And there are no footpaths in either the cul-de-sacs in Blanche or Britannia, Wentworth and Prince Alfred. So I just have difficulty that someone thinks it's our responsibility to put footpaths in when the whole idea of the development when it started was to have no footpaths. And then when we had the information session here some time ago, I raised the matter of, well, if we don't put a footpath in Blanche, Britannia, Wentworth or Prince Alfred, then why should we put one at the end of Excelsior from Prince Alfred on? Because that, in effect, is also a cul-de-sac. But that seemed to be ignored. There's no words explaining that at all. So I cannot support this at all. I think this is not sort of money, and it's not even on the budget at the moment, but it should really not be considered for that. I do agree with a letter that we received, and he or she also made mention of the end of Excelsior not requiring a footpath, but that the top end, where there is a little bit of traffic, may need a short extension, maybe to Blanche. And the current one is actually on opposite the marina side, and there may be some argument in having that small section. I'd also question why are we considering 2.5 metres when normally we're looking at 1.5 metre width for a footpath. I know it's going to be on the curb, which means that when people put their bins out, there may be some obstructions, and other councils do this by providing some pads for bins and what have you. So all in all, I'm not supporting this. I think it's not money that we should be spending. I think we've got so many important things that we should be spending money on and can't afford to, so I won't support this.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you. I look at this in very simple terms. There's significant opposition to this no matter which way. It's not going to be a high usage area. We have no money available, so we're only making a decision that we can't act upon. So I think that we should wait until there's extra money available, which will then enable the superior option to be considered. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scott, have you got a question, did you say?
If I may, yes. I overlooked the 2.5. May I ask, why is it 2.5, which seems very wide when you think about it? It's a pretty wide sweep in a very narrow area. Can someone answer that as to why we've gone to 2.5 and not 1.5?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll hand to General Manager Infrastructure.
And if I, through the Deputy Mayor, if I could ask the Manager of Assets to respond to that question, please.
So we've recommended 2.5 just to go with the better option. So there's nothing stopping us from putting 1.5 in, but given the amount of requests that we've had and the amount of people that use it, we thought to go with a better option. And
what would be the cost difference in today's terms? Would it it wouldn't drop by a third, would it?
So the cost estimates between the two at this stage, and they are estimates, is $1 million for the full length, or 1.5 at the 2.5 metre width. So 1.5 metres, $1 million for the full length of Excelsior Parade, or at 2.5 metres, 1.5 million for the full length. So there's a difference of 500,000 between the two. It should be noted too, if we do proceed to construction with this, it would be staged. So we'd do that in a staged approach. So you could consider the stages as they roll out.
Thank you.
Councillor Coomans, have you got a question?
I do. Could I ask why we didn't consider not putting a footpath in from, what's the last one, Prince Alfred to the end of Excelsior, when it's really a cul-de-sac like the others are?
Yeah, we just wanted to get the whole street done. We've had requests for that entire street to get done. There's also suggestions too about linking it up with the barrages for future state. But as I said again, you know, if it does proceed to construction, it'll be rolled out in stages, and each stage can be considered at the time. So.
Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I completely agree with fellow councillors in relation to the cost of this footpath and that we don't have any money at the moment to spend. However, as I read it, we are noting the report and we're approving a footpath, however it's not funded. I do wonder, and I would be happy to support it on the basis if there's a variation to say approve a 1.5 metre or 2.5 metre wide footpath. And reason why is we don't have the budget for it. It's $500,000 difference now, let alone in the future. And I think we need to be able to have that flexibility to make that decision based on the funding that we might have in the future.
So, Councillor Livingston, do you want to make a variation? Thank you. So you're saying that you want a 1.5 metre footpath?
Either approve either a 1.5 metre or 2.5 metre wide footpath so that there is that flexibility in the future.
Thank you. Does she want? Do you need to say anything more about the future direction? Thank you. Councillor Maidment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I've got a question, Manager for Assets.
Sorry, can you just hang on for a moment?
Sure.
Councillor. Yeah.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, sorry, thank you for bearing with us. Is there a way that you would be potentially happy to choose one or the other? Because that would mean that we'd have to bring two full reports back at some point with different detailed plans and costings and things like that. Unless the General Manager Infrastructure has a different way he'd like to suggest it first.
Through the Deputy Mayor, no, we could combine it into one report. That's okay, then the recommendations can sit there in terms of, there are other questions there around staging and other things if we ever get to that point. So this is purely just trying to establish that we have a project that's available, and knowing that from a funding perspective, having shovel-ready projects are more advantageous than having projects that haven't been initiated in shape or form. We're just trying to get to a point where we can maximise the potential funding we may be able to extract from other organisations.
So, Councillor Miller, who moved the recommendation, and Councillor Scott, who seconded it, are you happy with that variation? Councillor Scott?
I'd prefer us just to go to 1.5, to be quite honest.
Councillor Miller?
If I answer that, am I taken to have closed the debate? I'm just...
Yes, it will. No, it won't, because I'm asking you a question. It's just a variation.
I am very comfortable with the wording that Councillor Livingston has, that it's either 1.5 or 2.5, because I believe the important thing is, as Mr Harvey just said, is that we have a position on this, and should an opportunity arise for funding, we can press the button and decide then whether it's 1.5 or 2.5. But I would like to close the debate on this one at some point. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Maidman?
Yeah, mine's a question for the Manager of Assets, Deputy Mayor. The Alexandrina-wide footpath budget is how much? And 1.5 million, how much percentage of that would be in any given year? Because it seems to me that we wouldn't get anything else much done outside of Excelsior Parade.
Yeah, so when we stage it, it would likely be between intersection and intersection, or cul-de-sac and cul-de-sac. So our initial estimates for that section, that first section of footpath, were 190,000. So our current budget for footpath expansion is 450,000 a year. So it would take a bit of it, but not the full amount. So yes, staging it would likely go out in probably 5 stages, broken down. So again, at that $1 million estimate for the 1.5, 200,000 a stage, current, noting that the long-term financial plan is being reviewed at the moment, but the current funding is 450. So.
Thank you. So, is there any other? Yes, Councillor Livingston.
Yes? If we did receive the funding to complete the footpath, can you please confirm whether or not the residents will be engaged in relation to the gardens that they have there at the moment? And if any of that was going to be ripped up?
Through the Deputy Mayor, we would generally always seek to make contact and talk to the residents that are affected by any project that's being undertaken.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
I just have a question before I do close. So we have spent, the $4,000 that's referenced in this, is that to complete this work, or it's just going to be $4,000 to finalise that?
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, I believe that the 4,000 is to complete the preliminary designs. Is that correct? Yep, General Manager Infrastructure. Thank you.
Through the Deputy Mayor, I'll ask the Manager Assets to respond to that question.
So the $4,000 will complete the drawings to IFC, or issued for construction drawings, so that will complete them off. So they're at 80% at the moment, and the 4,000 will turn them into construction drawings.
Through you, Acting Deputy Mayor, is that a budget variation? Then they're actually asking, this is asking for $4,000 as on top of, that's not in the recommendation.
Through the Deputy Mayor, no, it's not. It's utilising the current funding that's available. What will happen is that once we are through this and the decision has been made by Council as to what they want to do, we would likely then take this to the next available financial review, quarterly review, and make an adjustment to bring back to you in terms of the capital spend on this project, bearing in mind that it's got a budget and we haven't expended that budget. So there'll be money there to bring back.
Now, Councillor Miller. Before you close, are there any more questions or does anyone else wish to speak? No? Then Councillor Miller, you'll close the debate.
Thank you. In just closing off that answer, that this will come back as a budget variation, but just to put money back in the budget, as I understand it, because it won't be required. Is that? I just want to understand if we're spending money here or not, because all I understand we're doing is receiving and noting and approving either 1.5 or 2.5 on the marina side, and there's no money. But there's this question of $4,000, and I don't understand where that's coming from.
Through Deputy Mayor, so the project has been in a design phase for 2 or 3 years, in terms of it being designed initially and then going to consultation and then coming back to the chamber and then going back out for optioneering and coming back to this point here. So the money that was available for this project was initially for that design work, but also to allow for some level of construction to occur. Council may recall that at the last budget, through the last budget cycle, 140,000 was removed from the budget, which was to add to this project. So the 190 that's sitting there at the moment is what we're utilising for the design. Finish that off. So the money is there and available now. We're simply going to we're just advising you that it will take only a small amount to get it to a point where it's ready to go. And we'll just bring it then back through a financial review to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just quickly, I think this is just the culmination of a body of work that's been going on for a long time. We've spent the money doing this work. I think it's really important that we receive and note it. It's not funded. The width of it is a future decision. I think that's really wise to give that flexibility into the future, not lock us into the width. And I note that it's not funded. It's very low risk. This is in effect, there's always an option to do nothing, and this is in a roundabout way an option to do nothing at this point in time because it's not funded. So I really want to thank the administration for the work that's gone into this, the community for responding how they did. It's always going to make someone happy and someone unhappy. I think this is where it's landed is appropriate. Everybody knows what the expectation is or what's we've decided. I agree with what Councillor Coomans said. I think it's really unfortunate that this happened in the first place, but now I think planning is a bit more progressed and there's an expectation in communities of what they will get, and they're much more aware of what they're getting and what they're not getting. And sometimes things change, communities change and their expectation changes. So I thank you, and I'm happy to support this report. Thank you.
Then we'll take it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? And that's carried. Thank you. We're up to item 8.2, the Strategic Land Program Group 1, Landseer Rd Milang, Community Engagement Outcomes. There's a recommendation. There are two recommendations. Do you want to do them separately or together? Yeah.
I'm happy to move recommendation 1.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Could I have a seconder to that? I need a seconder. Councillor Oliver, thank you. Is there any debate? If not, all those in favour? Oh, Councillor.
So I didn't get to speak when I moved it. I think that this is going to the Minister. The next step is to send it to the Minister, but I just want to note the feedback that said this was a subdivision, if I understand correctly, and there is so the proceeds, this came about, and there was this strip of land was the 12.5% open space. Is that how I'm understanding it? I'm only asking because I just wanted, the feedback was, a couple of the comments were that whatever the proceeds are, they go to be spent in the community in Milang. So I just want to double check. What will we be telling the Minister? Do we just I just want to acknowledge the feedback in that it was 50-50 and potentially what the proceeds get used for.
Thank you, Acting CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll ask General Manager Corporate to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you. Currently under Council's policies, the funds would come back to Council, not necessarily for local projects. If it is sold, Council could make decisions which are sort of separate to the sale about how they'd like to allocate funds in the future years. Sorry, can I just clarify, were you asking if originally if this land was part of a open space contribution or not?
I think when the land was originally subdivided, I may have misunderstood what was being said in this report, but the feedback suggested that this land was held off and retained in council ownership for a reason, and now we're going to sell it. I just want the intent of why it was held in the first place to be respected, I guess, and I think that's what the some of the community feedback said. It's about open space and preserving that part of the land when it was originally subdivided.
Through the Chair, I might just have to go to the Manager of Property and Procurement, whether she has any knowledge of the original purposes of the land.
Thank you. Through the Chair, my understanding is it was part of a subdivision of one property into two, but not a development as such. But what we will need to do is clarify that in our report to the Minister, because we do need to be really clear on what the compensation is for that.
Thank you. Is there any further debate? Right. Then we are going to vote on recommendation 1. All those in favour, raise your hand. Against, then that's carried unanimously. We have recommendation 2, and there are 3 points. Would someone please move? Thank you, Councillor Maidman. Could I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Yes, you may.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was very satisfied to hear from the adjacent landowners this evening that commented that this land would be revegetated. It would not become a burden to council because in its current state, if let go, it could pose a fire risk, and we don't want anything to happen on that edge of town. There's been plenty of fires on the western side of Milang over the many, many years, and this would be kept to a minimum fire risk. Reinstate fencing and create a corridor for wildlife. So I think they're going to be doing all the right things. They've said all the right things so far, and I think we should support this wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver, do you wish to speak? Is there any further debate on this? Then those voting in the affirmative, please raise your hand. Against? That is a unanimous decision. Thank you. That's moved and carried. Right. Somewhere. There's a 3 somewhere. So we're up to item 8.3, Strategic Land Program Group 1, Woodrow Drive, Community Engagement Outcome. There's recommendation 1 and 2. Maidman, do you wish to move this?
1 and 2, thank you.
Right. Thank you. So you're moving both. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Scott. Do we have any debate? No? Do you want to speak to this, Councillor Maidman?
Just that I've lived in the area for 45 years. It's always been a road. Everyone thought it was a road, and it makes a great deal of sense to get this off and resolved for legal reasons, and yeah, makes a great deal of sense to me, so I hope you support it.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
I just endorse what Councillor Maidment has said. I think we went through this some time ago, and we were down there and it was explained to us, all very logical, needs to be done.
Thank you. If there's no further questions or debate, all those in favour? Against? Then that's unanimously carried. Thank you. 8.4, Middleton Floods Update. There are 2 points that Council receive and note the Middleton Flood Update report and receive a further update report in February 25. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Scott. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Coomans. Anyone wish to speak to the motion? Yes, Councillor Scott.
Just very briefly, I have to keep reinforcing that it's very important that we keep at this. There's been considerable damage there. In fact, I thought there was another area slightly up the creek from there, on the edge of Mill Terrace, which hasn't appeared because this seems to be south of or east of Mill Road, but we can worry about that separately. I suspect the creek may belong to someone else on the top side of Mill Road, but I'm not sure. But we must keep this on the go. There's been considerable erosion, needs to be reinstated and protected for when a future flood comes along.
Excuse me, Councillor Scott, but we're actually not looking at that report that you're talking about. That comes up just a little later on in the confidential section of this meeting. So
Sorry,
this is simply to receive and note the flood update report.
Thank you for your correction.
Perfectly okay. Councillor Miller.
Thank you. This is a good report. I really appreciated it. I just think the table in particular was really helpful. I think it would have been even more useful if it had included dollar amounts next to it, because it would have reflected that over the past couple of meetings we've adopted adding $140,500 so far to our operating budget, and potentially another 10,000, I guess. But if you read the ARC agenda for BR1, there's nothing that's proposed to come out to replace this. So it needed to have the dollar values in it to make it a complete picture in the table. So I would just seek if the mover and the seconder would support adding just some words at the end of 2025 that the update includes a column that reflects the budget adjustments. I think that's really important to be transparent for our community.
Is the mover and the seconder happy to do that? Thank you. If there's no questions or debate on this... Oh, sorry. I'm rushing. Yeah. Thank you. All good? Councillor Scott.
Should that be budget adjustment amounts or budget estimates?
Can you clarify that, please?
Sorry, we've made decisions that are very specific in dollar amounts. They're not estimates. So it's just for information in an update.
Thank you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We're up to agenda item 8.5, 76 Kessell Road, Goolwa, Code of Amendment. And there are 3 items which need to be voted on. Do I have a mover? Councillor Miller, thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion, questions? Councillor Maidment?
Yeah, I read the letter as contained in attachment 1. I was just curious to hear from the manager of CWMS as to his thoughts on the reduced buffer zone and any how they're going to mitigate odours from that ponds as the caravan park creeps closer to the effluent ponds.
Thank you. So I'll just double check that General Manager Infrastructure would like to hand to Manager CWMS. Thank you.
Through the Chair, yes, we do have concerns in regards to code amendment and its proximity to treatment plant. Obviously, with increased capacities, we're actually seeing much more loading go through the system, so we are getting more odour through the Goolwa treatment plant itself. So obviously, from a council perspective, any of that means an increased risk to us, I guess, as a business and a council in regards to the number of complaints.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other debate? Then I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So 8.6, item 8.6, lot 485 Randell Road, Hindmarsh Island, code amendment. There are 3 points to this recommendation. Would someone please move? Thank you, Councillor Maidment. Could I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Livingston. Any discussion, Councillor Maidment?
Although I'm not in favour of this particular development, it's been initiated privately. It represents a disjointed development of the Hindmarsh Island area. Fully support the letter contained in attachment 1, and hopefully the Minister will consider this as the way this council would like to move forward on this particular plot. Not to say that in future years it could come to fruition, but at this point in time, to have a disjointed number of developments on Hindmarsh Island would be detrimental to this council.
Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Similar to Councillor Maidment, at this point in time, I don't agree with any further development on Hindmarsh Island. I don't think that Hindmarsh Island has the infrastructure to cater for much further dwellings, especially not 605, as the report says, without infrastructure upgrades. So unfortunately, I do not support this code amendment at this time.
Any further debate? Councillor Oliver.
I'd just like to
and
echo,
then Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I'd just like to echo Councillor Livingston's concerns there, and I share those. I'm concerned about the level of development on Hindmarsh Island due to the lack of access, the condition of Randell Road, and the impact on the amenity. I do note, though, that this has been pretty respectfully put together. It's in a good location, and they're good, appropriate sized blocks. But I do have the general concerns about Hindmarsh Island and how we're going to approach that in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I endorse everything that the letter. What caught my eye was that rezoning is premature and does not facilitate orderly development, and orderly development is very, very important. And I think it's just a case of this idea's time's not yet come. So I'm supporting this because it's not supporting the code amendment. Thanks.
Thank you. If there are no further questions or no further debate, I'll put the vote. All those in favour of this motion, this recommendation, thank you. Could we just have another try? All those in favour? Against? Then it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. We had item 8.7, capital projects carried forward for 24-25. There's a recommendation that that council receive and note the report and endorse the capital projects as identified in attachment 1, totalling 12.9 million to be carried forward for completion in 24-25. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Scott. Thank you, Councillor Maidment, who's seconding it. Do you want to speak to this motion? Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. These are material amounts that have been carried forward, so I do wish to ask a number of questions. 12.9 million is a significant number and a large proportion of the overall capital expenditure for the year. When you read the report, it does suggest that 37% of the planned capital works have not been undertaken within the prescribed time. Could I please ask why? Secondly, of the 12.9 million, how much has been expended between 1st of July and now, which is almost 5 months after balance date? Because I'd be imagining it must be almost all spent. Just a couple of less intense questions. Could you please explain why so many fleet upgrades and purchases are outstanding and they're listed something like global supply problems?
Excuse me, Councillor Oliver, can you just do one at a time?
Sure.
Because no one's going to remember all those.
Yep. Cool.
So could you just repeat the first one, please?
12.9 million is a significant number and a large portion of the overall CapEx for the year, suggesting 30% of capital works were not completed on time, 37%. Could you please explain or summarise why they haven't been completed?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I might hand to the Chief Financial Officer to answer that one. Thank you.
The budget that we took for 24-25 had an estimation of $9 million, which was put through as part of that to be carried forward. What was the actual number? It was $9.2 million would be carried forward into this financial year from last year. A lot of the projects are either in varying stages of being multi-year projects, like the Goolwa Wharf. We've brought nearly $3 million of the $12 million is to do with the Goolwa Wharf. So it's a range of those sorts of issues. I know you asked about global supply chain issues. Some of the fleet vehicles that we buy, we do not buy things that are directly off the shelf, so there is some delays still going on through that. Can't remember any of your other questions, so if you'd like to go again.
Thank you. So of the 12.9 million, how much has been spent since 1st of July?
I would have to take that on notice.
Yes, please. And many of the projects have had expenditure but have residual amounts remaining, which are being carried forward. Are any of these leftovers which could be converted to savings?
To the best of my knowledge, through the process that we undertook, all the projects that had commenced, so where a project had commenced, there was an expenditure against it. We had made an estimation as to whether that project would be finished or not finished, those projects that were not finished on the 30th of June, and we closed on the 30th of June. We didn't roll on for a period of time to continue our capitalisation if it wasn't finished on the 30th of June. Bad luck, we'll see you next year. So those projects are continuing on. So we did do a review. I think there was maybe one or two that dropped off the list, but not a lot.
Thank you. And generally, having reviewed the expenditures, are there any further savings from aborting or reducing any of the projects?
It's a good question. To the best of my knowledge, these projects are all committed to, so I would not expect there would be any additional savings that you'd see through these projects.
Thank you. General Manager Infrastructure.
So, sorry, through the Deputy Mayor, just to bring your attention to the report you previously went through, which is Excelsior. Excelsior plays on this list. So yes, that one will be brought back to you as part of a financial review, and there are likely to be savings on that project in itself. As we move through these projects, there may be opportunities as we close these out or able to bring them back to you to report on them. So you can see we're trying to do that as we move through.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I thank Councillor Oliver for his questions. This is a carried forward report, and our program last year was always going to be a bit ambitious, I think, and we just have to keep going. I'm just interested to know if we are still on track to deliver our current capital works program, and I know that this is about carried forwards, but it will have an impact. Because I couldn't see in the Audit and Risk Committee agenda for Friday our current capital project status report, which I thought was going to come with Budget Review 1. So I'm hoping that will come to November's council meeting. Most councils don't deliver their whole program, in my experience. That's just not us, Alexandrina, that's most local government councils. Because of the size and the scale of the projects, it tends to lend itself to carry forwards. And I'm actually interested, I think Councillor Oliver's questions are probably relevant to our current capital program, but I guess there'll be questions I'll have at the next, like this is carried forwards. There will be an impact, I would imagine, on our on our current program of capital works. And so, yeah, I can't see, I'm looking forward to some discussion in that report about any projects at risks or where we can defer items. So I thank Councillor Oliver for your questions. Also, thank you for the report. I think we have no choice here. We just have to keep going.
Thank you. We will take it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Then that's carried unanimously. Item 8.8, appointment of Deputy Mayor from December the 1st, 2040. Yes, Councillor Maidment.
I would like to nominate Councillor Oliver, Deputy Mayor, as the...
Point of order. All due respects, Deputy Mayor, point of order. I think our first decision should be whether in fact we have a Deputy Mayor for the coming year.
Well, we can certainly talk about that, Councillor Coomans, but I was thinking that we would go into an informal discussion. Our members may nominate themselves, or they may choose, as Councillor Maidment has done, vote for someone else or suggest someone else. So how long would you like? 10 minutes? Is 10 minutes long enough? Would you like to discuss more than 10 minutes, a time frame on this? Could I have a show of hands? Is everyone happy with 10 minutes? Oh, okay.
I think, may I just clarify through the Deputy Mayor? So I believe at the first term of council, the beginning of the election, council resolved to appoint a Deputy Mayor, and there was discussion around that process and that it would be shared on a rotational basis. So council could change their opinion if they wanted, but what Deputy Mayor is asking to do is to go into informal to consider whether you would like to see nominees for that position.
So there are two things here. Councillor Coomans is talking about, do we want to have a yearly rotation or continue that? And then the second one is that we're going to nominate for a Deputy Mayor. Okay, so Councillor Maidment, yes.
Wouldn't we have to rescind that original motion before we go into any debate or talking about it?
Do we?
Through the Mayor, if you give me a minute, I'll just check what the original resolution was back in, I think, November 22. It was either November or December 2022. my gut and understanding was that we did say we will have one, and when we did this last time, we appointed another person for a year. So if you want me to confirm the original resolution, give me a minute to go looking. Okay.
While Tash is looking at that, maybe we can move on and talk about nomination. We've had one nomination from the floor, because my memory is that we did discuss this at our first meeting, or one of the first meetings we had, and we decided to have a new deputy mayor each year. Do you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to get some clarification, because
Okay.
it may well have been for the first year. You've got it, Ed.
Just pulled it up. So council did on the 28th of November 2022. At that point in time, they resolved to appoint Bill Coomans to the position of Deputy Mayor from the 29th of November 2022 to the end of November 23. So the resolution before you is that you haven't moved yet though, is the same, very similar motion, if someone moves it, to appoint a Deputy Mayor.
So the question is, we didn't actually resolve in 2022 to have a deputy mayor each year. It was only for that particular year.
So what you resolved was to appoint a particular person to that position till the end of November 23. Then in, I think it was October 23, you then resolved to appoint Margaret Gardner to that role for another year. So what administration has put forward is the recommendation to appoint another person to the position of Deputy Mayor for a period of time.
So the question is, you don't need a residual motion if council decides not to appoint a deputy mayor. Okay. So are we actually adjourned for some discussion or not? I just want to say a few words about it as well.
You may speak.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, you're right. I was elected to be Deputy Mayor for the first year. I sort of remember back sort of 4 years before then when the Mayor said that he's a full-time Mayor and he really didn't need a Deputy Mayor. And in that first 4 years before the current term, we in fact did not have a Deputy Mayor. And then this particular period, he sort of supported having a Deputy Mayor, but contrasting what happened in the first 4 years and my term is in 12 months as a Deputy Mayor, any one of us could have handled that. It really didn't need a Deputy Mayor. I was a Deputy Mayor with Olga Paringa, and the way we worked there is that the Mayor and myself worked together, had regular meetings, attended a lot of the more important meetings together, and it was an opportunity to discuss progress and where we needed to be. So when I was elected, I expected the same thing, but it wasn't. Contacted not very often. Things like attending dawn service and stuff, well, you went as the Deputy Mayor, but anyone could have done that. So I really couldn't see us having to spend $5,000 for having a Deputy Mayor. I should clarify also that I did actually nominate myself last year because my intention then was to try and change the system so that the Deputy Mayor actually had some status, some work, and actually was earning, or the $5,000 paid a year was actually had some value to it. I didn't think it did. I've looked at Deputy Mayor Gardner's monthly reports, and representing the Mayor happened a couple of times, but again, anyone could have done that. So I don't see the value in having a Deputy Mayor like other councils do. And so I'm thinking that $5,000 could be spent on something like, we have a number of Section 41 committees. When you look through the minutes, the apologies for volunteer members of those committees is very high. more often than not, the first thing they have to do is see, have we got a quorum? Because members don't seem to be attending. So I would rather see that we share that money amongst the volunteers sitting on those committees as a sitting fee, and it'll be only minor, but at least it might be some encouragement for them to attend those committee meetings, because they are important. But it doesn't seem to have they don't seem to have the responsibilities that maybe they should have. So that's where I was thinking. Honestly, I don't believe we need a deputy mayor at all, not the way it operates at the moment. If it was operating a little bit differently, then by all means, yes. So I don't support having a deputy mayor. End of story.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I believe our code of practice actually says that our deputy mayor will preside at meetings if we don't have a mayor, which is a perfect example of what has happened tonight. So I seem to recall that when we changed our code of practice last time, we actually did include that specifically about a deputy mayor. So I think for that reason alone, and we do need to have a deputy mayor. It just makes it seamless if the mayor's away for unplanned leave. I do think that it is just more efficient to have a deputy mayor, and I don't know if that means we'd have to change our code of practice. But we do say that if the mayor's absent, it'll be the deputy mayor that will preside.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak about this subject? Councillor Scott.
Yes, we've been through this before, and I was under the impression at the beginning of the term that we were going to have 4 separate deputy mayors over the period of the term of this council. Now, it appears that Councillor Coomans wasn't particularly busy, but my impression of your situation, you've been quite busy and doing things and been fulfilling the role, I won't say to capacity, but quite up there with the workload. So I personally just think we've, I suppose some years are busier than others, and perhaps Councillor Coomans struck a slack year, but I think we just need to move on and get the night underway, and we've got one nomination. I'd like to make a nomination, if I may, in a minute, when you're prepared to accept it, and let's move on, because we discussed this at the beginning, and that's what I thought the intent of the whole thing was, and I think I believe I'm not alone in thinking that.
Maidment.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. None of us have got a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Tonight's a classic example where we have a Deputy Mayor standing in for the Mayor who's ill. Not wishing this to happen too often, but it certainly could happen in the future. And it's an opportunity for our Mayor to step back. Maybe that first year he was still running on adrenaline from the previous 4 years, and now he's starting to pull back on a few of his commitments, and I think we do need a Deputy Mayor.
Okay. All right. Maybe we could have some nominations now. We've got one. Councillor Oliver has been nominated. Councillor Maidment nominated Councillor Oliver. Councillor Miller, do you want to nominate?
I understand that Councillor Nicholson was interested in this role, but she's not here. So I'm not sure who Councillor Scott was going to nominate, but if he doesn't nominate Councillor Nicholson, I'm just respecting her absence because I understood that she had indicated that she was interested. I haven't heard from Councillor Nicholson, so I'm only hearing this second-hand. And I'm not sure. Just let me check.
Yes, please. So we'll make a call to Councillor Nicholson.
Answer that because Councillor Nicholson rang me today and asked me to support her as a nomination for Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
And she'll be here at 7:30.
Yes,
or
she will.
7:40, yeah.
Are there any other nominations for... Yes, Councillor Scott.
I want to nominate Councillor Livingston, please. Councillor Livingston.
Are you able to accept the nomination, Councillor?
Very flattered. Thank you, Councillor Scott. Unfortunately, with my other commitments with Council, I don't think that I would be able to fulfil that role, given that I do see how much you do in that role, but thank you.
Thank you. So, Councillor Nicholson has agreed to take the nomination. Are there any further nominations? If not, we will have a ballot.
Yes, I was going to nominate either Councillor Nicholson, and she's already been nominated now, but I also wondered whether Councillor Scott would be prepared to accept the Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Scott, are you able to accept that nomination?
Thank you for the nomination. At some stage I would be interested in doing it, but this year would be rather difficult for me. So thank you, but I'd decline at this stage. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So we have at the present time nominated Councillor Oliver, Councillor Nicholson. They're the two nominations that we have. So could we please have some ballot papers?
Through the Deputy Mayor, our Code of Practice does provide the opportunity for the members who are nominated to do a short explanation of why they would like to be nominated if they wish.
Nice idea, thank you. So we can't get Councillor Nicholson to talk about why she would like to become Deputy Mayor, but we do have Councillor Peter Oliver. So would you like to speak, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you, and thanks very much. What a great opportunity, and I'd like to firstly thank Councillor Maidment for your nomination, and I humbly accept the nomination. I'm pretty keen, I'm here to serve, and this is a great opportunity for my development, but a great opportunity to support the Mayor, and a great opportunity mostly to serve the community. So thank you very much.
Council members, due to there being more than one council member nominated for the position of Deputy Mayor, a secret ballot is being conducted using the first past the post voting. The acting CEO and the General Manager Corporate separately will count the votes and confirm the correct number of votes were received, and the first past the post will be informed of the results by me. Yeah? Yes, I know. That's a lot of adapting. It was a lot of adapting. Oh, there's something else there.
Through the chair, the person with the most votes was Councillor Peter Oliver. Congratulations. What we will now move to do is to populate his name in the proposed resolution. Council have been under the practice of previously appointing for 1 year, but it would be up to the mover to put in the time frame for 2. But now that we are once in a moment when we come out of informal meeting procedures, because you're going to be voting on an item with Peter Oliver, Peter is likely need to declare a material conflict of interest when we come out of the next part. Thank you. So,
thank you. Thank you, Councillor Oliver. We'll put this into the recommendation, but we need to return to formal procedure at 13 minutes, 14, 15 minutes past.
Could I declare a material conflict of interest?
Sure,
Please,
thank you.
having been elected. Thank you.
And you'll leave the room? So the recommendation is that Council appoints Councillor Peter Oliver to the position of Deputy Mayor from the 1st of December 24 in accordance with Section 51(3) of the Local Government Act 1999. Starting from the 1st of December. Well, it's 1 year, isn't it? So we have a motion before us. Someone please move. Thank you, Councillor Maidment. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Thornton. All those in favour?
Sorry.
Councillor Miller?
Sorry, I just wanted to say I think it's really important that we have a Deputy Mayor, because if you have the instance where you need a document executed, I forgot to say it before, then if it needs to be executed by the Mayor and the CEO, you don't need to call a special council meeting to progress that document being executed. So I'm really happy that we are having continuing with the Deputy Mayor.
No one else wishes to speak? Then I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Then that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And Councillor Oliver can be brought back in. Congratulations, Councillor Oliver. You've been appointed Deputy Mayor as from the 1st of December. I wish you well. And I might add that I've actually had quite a busy year and a lot of issues which probably I can't talk about, but yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you for the opportunity that you gave me. We are now up to item 8.9, nomination for President of the Local Government Association of South Australia. There are a number of people. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, Councillor Scott, do you wish to nominate someone?
The Lord Mayor, Jane Lomax-Smith.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you want to go to informal? Right, that's what I wondered about. Okay, so could I have a show of hands just to go informal so that we can actually talk about the other candidates? That's a very wishy-washy hand. Thank you. So everyone's more or less happy with going informal. Okay, so we've got one nomination. Thank you. Councillor Maidman, do you want to say something? No, sorry. Oh, well done. Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Sorry, I just have a question about the process we're going to follow here. I thought last time when we did the LGFA, we did a secret ballot for nominations and to nominate, and then whoever got the most votes was who we would be voting for. I just find it a little bit awkward that we're going to have this discussion in, yeah, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, we're just suggesting if you wanted to go into informal, if anyone wants to ask any questions, perhaps someone might say, does anyone, know these people or, has strong opinions? And then you don't have to say names if you don't like. We can go straight to the secret ballot, but we just wanted to give opportunity if anyone wanted to ask any questions or have a particular say. Thank you.
You happy with that, Councillor Miller? Okay, so are there other people on this list that others want to talk about that you know of? Oh, right. Okay. Well, then we will go straight to the ballot. Councillor Scott.
We're informal, so we're not using these opportunities, is that right?
Pardon?
We are informal still?
Yes, we are.
We're not using these, we're just talking off the record.
In an informal, you still would use your microphone.
Still use microphone?
Yep.
So
It's all. It's just the meeting procedures are suspended, so you don't formally. You can speak more than once, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Well, I just moved the Lord Mayor because she is very experienced and she has a lot of contacts and oh, sorry.
Still getting away with it, aren't they? And I believe she's a very competent operator, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that some of the others don't have some qualities and qualifications, but I think she would be, under the circumstances, the best person for the job this year, or for this term.
Thank you.
So I have no hesitation in nominating her, whether that's the right procedure or not, but I'm just speaking for her.
Okay. Any other thoughts that people have? Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, look, I agree. To me, it wasn't a no-brainer. I was looking at credentials for the job, and I think her credentials are pretty extensive. Not forgetting that she was a member of the government at one time, and I won't talk politics. I've never supported any particular group, but the fact of the matter is that the current government will probably be there for quite some time. She was of the same persuasion, and she's a university lecturer. She's got, she's been a minister for education. She's got an Order of Australia. What was the other one? She was education and something else as well. She is also pro-heritage conservationist. And I've been to some of her lectures, and she's a damn good speaker. I think she'll have the ear of government, and I think she's one person who would take local government a step further forward, and I strongly support her. And I just got to give you this little quote because it might be a bit of an aside, but I like her philosophy when she talks about her role in the Adelaide Council, when she says things like, quote, "Our council committees allows us to explore, clarify and refine our decision making, so when we get into council we can crack on with it." And I thought that was a brilliant little saying. And she also said that City of Adelaide, our meeting schedule alternates weekly between committee and then a full council meeting. So I think we should be listening to her, and I think she'd be a great president of the LGA, and I think she'll do a superb job.
Thank you. Well, if there are if no one else wants to talk about any of the other candidates, then maybe we'll go straight into the ballot, please.
Through the Deputy Mayor. So Dr. Jane Lomax-Smith received the highest number of votes. Thank you.
Thank you. Then our suspension will be brought to an end. Glad to see you, Councillor Nicholson. So that the recommendation is that Council nominates Jane Lomax-Smith to the office of President of the Local Government Association of South Australia for the term of 24-26. All those in favour? Oh, yes, sorry. A mover and a seconder. Do I, Councillor Coomans, Councillor Scott, right, now we'll vote. All those in favour? Against? Then that's unanimous. Thank you. All right. We're moving on to item 8.9, nomination. Oh, no, we haven't. We've done that. Okay. Yeah, 8.10 we're up to. The Recreation, Open Space and Sports Strategy, ROS, Community Engagement. There are 5 points in the recommendation. Councillor Miller, do you want to move this?
Yes, I do, your Deputy Mayor. I would like to move it, but I would like to just push out Friday the 22nd of November to Wednesday the 4th of December. It's just 2 weeks. I'm hoping, I think it's 2 weeks, 2 and a bit weeks. And I'm happy to speak to my reasons for doing this. Our next council meeting is Monday the 18th of November, and that's when, as I understand it, we will have the significant body of work being undertaken by TSA regarding Lot 10 in Strathalbyn finally coming to the chamber. The recommendation before I change the date would see consultation closing 6 days after the agenda for the November meeting being published. We're also going to be consulting on our strategic plans, our asset management plan and long-term financial plan, and submissions on those plans are being taken until Wednesday the 4th of December. There's a session in the North Ward at the Strathalbyn Community Centre on the 21st of November, and this would see consultation closing the next day. The survey, as per the bottom of page 179, seeks to reach a broader cross-section of our district and develop further our understanding of community wants and needs regarding recreation, open space and sporting assets. The top of page 180 states the Ross survey is being undertaken through non-busy periods of Christmas and New Year, but it's closing the 22nd of November. I want to say thank you very much for bringing this forward from early 2025, but if we could just push it back out by 2 weeks, that would allow time to have it considered during the strategic plans consultation and close at the same time to avoid any confusion for our community. The community is being asked to comment on many council initiatives, and a consistent date may minimise confusion. And I understand that this report, the subsequent report, isn't coming back until February, so I'm hoping that this extra 2 weeks isn't a problem. I also note there's no council member briefing proposed in the consultation phase. And this is a significant strategy guiding decision making over the next 10 years. And I'm just wondering if perhaps a briefing session could be considered, and it's not a deal breaker, but this is just an observation. And I'm just a little concerned that whilst the report talks about facilities, the survey seems a little focused on open space and not indoor recreation. I anticipate the not mentioned above at question 10 in the survey will garner some great feedback. Apart from that, I love it. I'm delighted we are making progress, and I can't thank the administration enough and my elected colleagues for supporting the progression of this recreation, open space and sports strategy that used to also have an facilities development plan as part of its title, but I know that it's a 10-year strategy and it will have an action plan supporting it. And I just wonder if question 16 which says, how satisfied are you with local playgrounds and parks? Could this be expanded to include indoor facilities? But again, it's not I'm so grateful that this is getting to this point earlier than the time frame indicated. So I hope that someone will second this, and I hope that it will be supported. Thank you.
Sorry, through the chair, if you don't mind, just from an administration perspective, I believe the time frame in the extension is okay from an infrastructure team perspective. That's correct? Yep, thank you. I just don't know whether the acting General Manager Community would like to give an update on the timeframes for Lot 10, because that was part of your consideration. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, we have had a slight delay in the delivery for the Lot 10 business case master plan. It's only going to be a matter of a week or so, but with the need to take those final documents back to the Lot 10 Langhorne Creek Road steering group, we're going to miss the cut-off date for the November council meeting, so that will be brought to council in December.
Thank you. So we have a mover of the motion, and that an inclusion of Wednesday, the 4th of December being the last day. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Anyone to speak to the motion or any questions? Otherwise, I will put this to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Then that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 8.11, subsidiary annual reports. There are reports from the Adelaide Hills Regional Waste Management Authority. Yeah, just a div. The Fleurieu Regional Aquatic Centre Authority, the Fleurieu Regional Waste Authority, and the Southern Hills Local Government Association. Councillor Miller.
I just wanted to redeclare my general conflict of interest because of for the Regional Waste Management Authority and the Southern Hills Local Government Association due to my employment. Because we're only receiving this report, I'm making it a general conflict of interest declaration. I will not participate in any discussion on those two items, and I will remain in the chamber and vote. But if it moves to any kind of discussion or decision making apart from receiving, and then I will change my declaration and leave. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
It hasn't been moved yet, has it?
No.
I'm happy to move they be accepted, but I just want to draw...
Who's got a conflict? Oh, sorry, just before you go on. Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have a material conflict of interest due to my employment and I'll leave the room.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Yes, I just want to draw attention to the Adelaide Hills Regional Waste Management Authority report where it says that I attended 3 out of 6 meetings. That's not a particularly good performance, but I just want to explain on 2 occasions I had connectivity problems. I was trying to do it by Zoom, and one I couldn't get through trying at home. The second time I up sticks and came in here, and by the time I got in here it was a short meeting and the meeting was over just as I logged on here. And the third meeting, for personal reasons, I just couldn't get there at the last minute. But it didn't look good, but I try to keep in touch. Better than that reflects, but those are the problems that I had. Thank you.
Thank you. So you're not moving that, you're just...
I did move it, and as I did, I added that to it, if that's in order.
Right. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Maidman. Certainly.
Just a couple of questions around the Southern Hills Local Government Association. There was a report in there that said Alexandrina Council's interest in the Southern Hills LGA is deemed to be immaterial and is therefore not accounted for. So I'd like to know what the explanation is, not accounted for. What does that mean? Because we pay an annual membership fee of $26,000. And I've got another question after that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, I'll hand to the Chief Financial Officer, please.
Sorry, could you re-ask the question?
So there's a line in the report that says Alexandrina Council's interest in the Southern Hills LGA, or Local Government Association, is deemed to be immaterial and is therefore not accounted for.
Yes.
So what does not accounted for mean?
So all the other subsidiary entities that we have, we record our share of the equity of the joint venture process. For the Southern Hills, we do not.
Okay.
Our controlling interest is not such that it meets the threshold for declaration.
All right. And the further question was, how much does Alexandrina contribute to the Climate Adaptation Coordinator role?
I would have to take that on notice.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So, Councillor Maidman, you've seconded that motion? Anyone to speak to the motion or against the motion? Any questions? Then I'll take it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Could we just do that again? Because I wasn't quite sure about you, Councillor Scott. You're having trouble with your arm? Thank you.
It was up pretty well.
All those in favour? Against? Then that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. We're up to item 8.12, lease and licence policy activities. This is the quarterly report, and there's a recommendation that council receive and note the lease and licence policy activities report for the 1st of July to the 30th of September. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Livingston. Any questions or anyone want to say anything? Great. Then we'll take it straight to the vote. All those in favour? Well done. Against? Then that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we're up to, where are we up to? 12, 11, 12, and we're up to 8:13. This is for the proposed 24-25 grant recipients, and there's a lot of them. There is 8 points to this. Do you want to do them separately, or do you want to just do the whole hog? Okay. Then 1 to 8. Would someone like to move in that way? Thank you, Councillor Scott.
No.
Oh, you don't want to? Okay.
Question.
Okay.
Under 2, I cannot support the fireworks on New Year's Eve. $2,500, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in Goolwa when there were no fireworks, and Goolwa made it through New Year's Eve very happily, with a lot of activity, and I think it's wrong for us to be seen to be.
Councillor, you can't debate it because I don't have a mover yet. So I need to have a mover. Thank you, Councillor Miller.
Can I just move 1 then? If Councillor Scott has an issue with 2, I'll move 1 so that he gets an opportunity. Because I also have an issue with 8. I would like council to have an opportunity to reflect on if there are unallocated money, if anybody declines or doesn't do an acquittal or doesn't, that it comes back to the chamber. And I think we should just be aware.
So you're willing to...
Well, I'm happy to move all of them if we can just change number 8, that it comes back to the chamber. It's not an administration decision. But I'm mindful that Councillor Scott has expressed some concern about one of them, so I don't know
He
how.
can talk in a moment. But what is it about 8 that you want to change?
It says there that unallocated funds can be redistributed by administration to other recommended recipients that were only offered partial funding.
And what are you wanting to change it to?
I want that redistributed by report to council. That's all. I'm just asking for that we make that decision, not an administration officer.
You happy with that?
That's all. That's what I'm moving. I'm happy to.
So you're moving the 8?
Yes, I'll move all 8.
Okay, thank you.
With that,
Could I have
with
a
that change.
seconder? Thank you, Councillor Livingston. Thank you. With the alteration on 8 that we've Councillor Miller's just talked to. Okay, so would you like to speak to or against this motion, Councillor Scott?
This is including 8? Is this including 8, or do you mean just...
This is everything.
The area that I raised.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see the New Year's Eve fireworks allocation removed. I think it's inappropriate for the council to be seen to be spending money on that. And I would rather that money go to supporting a small hall somewhere, one of the districts, or supporting some youth activity. But I think just to make a pile of $250, $100 notes and set fire to them, I think is inappropriate.
So you're not supporting that one?
Correct.
Okay. Councillor Layton?
Look, thank you, Deputy Mayor. We appoint various committees to determine the outcomes of the applications for funding. And part of those committees is a staff member facilitating those committees, and I think that's where it should lie. To me, they are all worthy recipients. I do like the idea that if there is any unallocated funds, that should come back to this chamber, and I fully support that, and I think we should leave it all as it is.
Thank you, Councillor Maidman. Any further discussion? Councillor Coomans?
Just a question. Could someone explain, please, under 4, the South Australian Jazz Festivals Incorporated, you've allocated $5,000, but it's for in-kind support for the hire of Centenary Hall. How does that become a monetary figure when all you're doing is giving the key to the hall?
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, I'll ask the Acting General Manager Community to answer that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, the $5,000 is what it would have cost if you have to go out and actually hire the hall for the period of time that is that's anticipated. So yes, it's in-kind support because it's our hall, but if it was an external provider, it would be $5,000. So it's still a $5,000 contribution to that facility.
Any other questions? Then I'll put it to the vote. All those,
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to note how rigorous the process was. There were many applications of great quality, and I've got to say, having been involved, it took me personally close to 3 days' work to go through them all. And I really got to commend the staff for the way that they collected and processed all this information. It was just, I was quite amazed. And those panel members, they were tough negotiators. I was going to say tougher than the Audit Committee any day. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to acknowledge everybody who took the time to submit an application. I think this program is working in a much better way than previously from the small donations in particular program. I always had an issue with how that was not transparent and open. I look forward to a review of seeing how this is operating at some time in the future. But these are such good news stories, and it was so interesting, just the depth and variety. I do wonder if there's just, and it's not a major issue, but I didn't think you could apply for more than one grant in one of the streams. And I did notice that there was one entity that had more than one application that was awarded, but it's not, I understand they're completely separate projects, but I just think that's something to be mindful of being awarded in different categories. Not necessarily would have oversight of those. It's not a main issue. They're all worthy recipients. I just love reading. They're all little amounts totally, but they make such a difference to these organisations, and I love it that we can facilitate those kinds of outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. You have now closed the debate. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. We're now looking at 8.14, item 8.14, end of year closure, and the recommendation that Council approve the principal office, libraries and depots will be closed from the 1 p.m. Tuesday the 24th and reopen at 9 a.m. on Thursday, 2nd of January. And will operate using out-of-hours services, and that Christmas New Year opening hours be advertised on Council's website and social media sites. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Livingston and Councillor Nicholson seconding that. All those in favour? Against? Then that's carried. Thank you. I think that's unanimous. I think Councillor Miller meant to put a hand up. Okay. 8:15, Chief Executive Officer's report. This is Tash Hunt's month, and she was busy. She was very busy. Do I have a mover to this motion, please? This recommendation, thank you. Councillor Oliver, seconder. Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. All those in favour? Against? Then that's moved and carried unanimously. Thank you for that. And thank you very much, Tash. I know it's a lot of work. Thank you, everyone. We are now down to item 9, and these are the Section 41 committees and advisory panel, and minutes and reports. And the first one is Section 41 Ratalang, Basham Beach and Horseshoe Bay Advisory Committee minutes of August the 8th. There's a recommendation. Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I'm happy to move that we receive and note these minutes, but I'd also like to pick up one of the recommendations that is coming from this committee that I haven't seen picked up anywhere else. And it is, oh, sorry, I haven't got what page it's on, but I've just emailed it, that the council administration further investigate the trust purpose and the trustees' responsibilities and obligations, together with the terms of the caravan park lease and the circumstances in which it was entered into. The committee's recommendation does go on a little bit longer than that, but I'm just looking to cut it off right there because it wasn't picked up anywhere. And it was a recommendation to council from that committee. So I'm delighted that the committee is recognising that need for that work to be done. And so I'd just like to honour their recommendation, but I'm just not doing the last bit of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Could I have a seconder, please? Seconder to the motion.
It's on page 332 of the agenda. It's on page 332 of the agenda. It's dot point 4 of their recommendation.
Thank you. If the General Manager, Infrastructure could please speak to that.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor. It wasn't a recommendation that the committee were pushing through to council to consider. That's why it doesn't say that it's a recommendation to council. It is a matter that the committee wanted to investigate themselves within the committee. Hence, that's why it says what it says. And hence why there is no report that's come through to you.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder to the motion? Okay.
sorry, I don't want the second bit. I just want it to end at entered into.
So you're happy with that, Councillor Miller?
Yes, I think it's important that we acknowledge that the committee made that recommendation to administration and that they're asking administration to take some action. And I thought they were just an advisory committee.
Okay.
So I'm supporting them. I love it that the committee's recognised this needs to happen.
Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Councillor Nicholson. Anyone, any discussion? Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just on that addition, I'm a little bit confused because my interpretation of that recommendation from the committee is that the second part of that recommendation is the purpose of doing that investigation. So I'm a little bit confused. Maybe if it's possible for a member of the committee or a member of administration can speak to that further.
Through the Deputy Mayor, could I ask you just to kind of elaborate on that question, please?
So what is being read up there now, and when it finishes in entered into, but then it goes on to say, with a view to considering the appropriate sources and allocation of funds for the playground, with a report to be presented at the next committee meeting. So it could be my interpretation, but I interpret that the further investigation in relation to the trust purposes and the trustees' responsibilities and obligations in relation to the playground.
Through the Deputy Mayor, I think that was a trigger for them seeking some guidance on the function of the trustee, and in relation particularly to how it interacts with the terms of the arrangements we have with state government. So there have been several questions about this along the way. This is the first time that the committee have actually written it down as a recommendation for us to come back with guidance on. But it's a query that's been brought up previously about the allocation of funds to projects and other work undertaken by council. I think this is a vehicle for that to occur. This was the point at which they decided they needed something more formal written down in order for them to get a report back.
You happy with that, Councillor Livingston? You look a bit flummoxed. You all right? Okay. Thank you, Tash.
May I just add that Councillor Miller may completely move this, but just bring your attention to item 9.3, which is later in the agenda, where you will be receiving a recommendation from the committee on this exact, what they had moved in that meeting. So that's also in item 9.3, so you're aware.
I think you'll find that's 9.3. Okay, well, coming back to 9.1, we have a mover and a seconder. We have... are there any other questions or any other need to speak? Then we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Oh, gosh. Are you in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay. The second report, Section 41 report, is the Ratalang, Basham Beach and Horseshoe Bay Advisory Committee acknowledgement and tribute to the late presiding member, Jerry Frodo. How do you say that name? Crockmore. And certainly Frodo was very much part of the volunteer in council. Spent a lot of time in the history room. and is passionate about his patch, or was passionate about his patch. So there's a recommendation. There's two recommendations, one from the committee and one from administration. Can we do these both together? Thank you, Councillor Coomans, for moving it.
Look, I am moving it, and could I just highlight that the memorial for Frodo, planting of the coastal beard heath by the bike track, that Frodo was actually one of the instigators of that location for the bike track, so it's very appropriate that that's where it goes.
Thank you. And Councillor Nicholson, are you seconding that? Thank you. Right. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We're down to item 9.3, Ratalang, Basham Beach and Horseshoe Bay Advisory Committee, the playground replacement. There are two recommendations, one from the committee and another one from administration. We do these together, please. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Scott. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion? Any questions?
Just a question. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a question. Timeline for, there's going to be some community expectation about this playground. So what is the timeline for obviously scoping it and then installation?
Thank you, General Manager, Infrastructure.
Through the Deputy Mayor, likelihood is that with some level of concept design in place to consult on, that's likely to be in the new year, and therefore construction will probably be the back end of the financial year at this point, depending on the types of equipment or facilities that are chosen to go into the space. Noting that any further allocation of funds will come back to this council for consideration.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anyone to speak to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Scott. And then Councillor Miller.
I just want to make a general comment that over the last 12 months or so, there's been quite a lot of...
Councillor Scott, if you speak now, you'll actually close the...
Yeah, absolutely correct. I will
the
withhold
debate.
my fire.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
I have a question. I just would like to know what the balance of the trust fund is either at 30th of June or when we last knew what the balance of that fund was. Thank you. And then I'll speak.
Through Deputy Mayor, I can find that out for you, but I have to take that on notice. I don't have that to hand.
Councillor?
I think I'm very comfortable with this recommendation coming from the committee. What I do want to just make very clear is that I have never ever questioned the expertise or qualifications or dedication of anyone associated with Ratalang, but I do have queries about the governance of this and the refresh of the committee, and I don't back away from that. But I am certainly not querying anything else beyond the governance and processes around this committee. Thank you.
Any further discussion? No further questions? Then we'll move to the vote. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, Councillor Scott. Heavens, I forgot all about you.
I could say I've forgotten what I was going to say, but I won't. I just wanted to make the comment that over the last 12 months, there has been quite a lot of comment about the functioning of this Section 41 group, and by a variety of people. So I'm not pointing at anyone in particular. But I do want to point out that it is not run by a collection of people that have no experience and no authority at all. It is actually 50% of the people there very often are senior staff, and there are others that are well versed in environmental management and that have done a huge amount of work over the years there. And I have been a little concerned at the veiled criticism that's been directed at this committee, and I think it's unwarranted. And it's at times it's almost like a fishing expedition, and I think it's unnecessary and unfair on those that are involved. There is a lot of thought and effort put into trying to make that as good as we can. It's a much loved area, much respected area, and a lot of work goes on in conjunction with the Narranderi people, and I have been pretty comfortable with how it has been run over the years, and I appreciate that I'm part of that committee, so you could say I'm biased, but I watch closely. But the guidance that we get from senior staff, and we also have a legal practitioner on board as well, I question whether you could find a better mix of people making up a Section 41 committee. And I just want to make that open statement because I have been concerned at some of the things that have been said, not necessarily by people that are part of our council, but people that are part of our district who I'm not sure that they have the full grasp of the whole story. Thank you.
That closes the debate, and we're at the voting point. So all those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 9.4, Section 41 Cemeteries Advisory Committee minutes of the 12th of September. There's a recommendation. Would someone please move the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Miller. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Oops. 9.5, report Section 41 Cemeteries Advisory Committee. This is a concept plan for Langhorne Creek Memorial Garden. There's a recommendation from the committee and one from administration. Could we please move this together? Thank you. Councillor Miller, are you moving this? Thank you. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Oliver, thank you. Could we please vote? All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. We're down to 9.6, Heritage Advisory Committee meeting, 19th of September. There's a recommendation that we receive and note the minutes of the Heritage Advisory Committee meeting. Could I have a mover? Thank you. Councillor Scott, seconder please. Councillor Maidment, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Good one, thank you. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. I do appreciate you all behaving so well. Okay, 9.8, report from section, have I missed one? Oh, here we go. A very important one actually, it's 9.7. It's the Heritage Awards Prize Initiative. There's a recommendation from the Heritage Committee and there's also one from administration. Thank you. I could look for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Maidment. Could I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Miller. If there are no questions or discussion, let's move straight to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Now we're down to 9.8, report from Section 41 Heritage Advisory Committee, Provisional State Heritage Listing, and this is for the Santa Grove Red Gum Troughs, and this has been on the list for a long time. And Councillor Maidment, you may move, and you want to speak? Certainly.
As the Deputy Mayor alluded, this has been ongoing since 2018, and finally, through a lot of hard work by the Heritage Advisory Committee, and in particular our council staff who facilitate that committee, and Sarah Longden, who's put this report together. This is much needed. Currently it's a fire hazard. I've walked through the property, and it's right before you what immediate action needs to be taken, and to protect these red gum troughs, which are of historical significance, given that this reserve was on the was necessary for cattle and sheep to be watered as a watering hole as they moved across the land or across the Flurio. So this will be a tourist attraction one day, but we need to get a operational budget to for an ongoing budget for this particular piece of land and the reserve.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Livingston. Thank you. It's getting late and I'm tired. Thank you. If there is no discussion or any questions, I'll put the vote. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Okay, we're on to 9.9. Report to Section 41 Heritage Advisory Committee. This is the pre-approved name list. There's a number of lanes names. There's a recommendation from the committee and from administration. I'd like to do them the same. Thank you.
Move the whole lot, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Seconder, Councillor Maidment. If there's no discussion or questions, all those in favour? Against? Carried, and I was going to say anonymously, but that's not quite right. But whatever. Okay, 9.10. This is the Wooden Boat Festival Committee meeting minutes of 23rd of September. There's a recommendation that Council receive and note the minutes of the South Australian Wooden Boat Festival Committee on the 23rd of September. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Coomans. If there's no questions or debate, then would you please, we'll move straight to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Unanimously.
She sounds surprised.
You don't think I should be surprised?
No. When you're dealing with people as
Okay.
efficient as we are.
Now, where am I up to? Thank you. What was that one? 9.10. I need to find 11. We've got 9.11. If I can find it. Yes, here it is. Okay, this is the Alexandrina Sustainable Agricultural Roundtable Committee minutes of September 4, and there's a recommendation that we receive and note these minutes. Could I have someone to move? Thank you, Councillor Miller. And a second, please. Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Okay, if there's no debate or questions, we'll move straight to the vote. All those in favour? Oh, no. Nearly missed you, Councillor Scott.
I think it's reasonable to just acknowledge the precarious and serious situation that the agricultural sector is in at the moment. It is very easy to be fooled as you drive from Currency Creek to the other side of Strathalbyn to think that everything's gold. There are some lovely crops there, but they're very much in the minority. And there's one paddock on the way to Finnis that would have to have 500 or more bows of hay in it. Those are in the minority, and the situation for a majority of a broad section of the farming community, whether they be in vineyards or sheep or cattle, is pretty dire. And I think we should acknowledge that on top of these, and if you read the minutes of this, it's come through even to the machinery dealers where there's not much in sales, but a lot more in repairs, and that's happening across South Australia. People try and do up old gear to get through the season. Some of them aren't even going to pull their headers, admittedly on the fringe of our area, but not even going to pull their headers in to get grain. So I just think we need to keep in mind that there will be farming communities that are in dire straits, and I think that we should be ready and in fact starting to make some approaches to the government in relation to assistance for some of these people. We've also got the dreadful situation between Wellington and Murray Bridge, which I know is just outside of our area, but we've probably got dairies that supply that milk factory where they are bound by a contract to supply milk but are not being paid. And if they breach their contract in supply, and so we'll sell it to someone else, they can be had for breach of contract, but in the meantime they're not being paid for their milk. And so I'm not sure how far that encroaches into our area, but there are some serious situations on or near our council area, and I think we need to be aware of it and be ready to step up and give support and at least remind the government that there may be some help needed.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. And I think we do need to remember that we've got a green drought on, which kind of looks great, but actually isn't good at all. Councillor Miller.
Thank you.
You're going to close this debate?
Yes, is that okay?
So if you speak now, you'll close the debate. Is there any... if there's... or have you got a question? Right. Okay. So we'll just ask, is there any one who wants to speak to the debate or ask a question? If not, the floor's yours, Councillor.
Oh, thank you. I thank Councillor Scott for his words, and I can only reiterate them. And I was actually going to raise on Friday how best to support this group with a motion, because I have been contacted by the rural city of Murray Bridge, a couple of rural council members there, and one in particular, just to tell me what they are doing or proposing to do at their council for this exact reason and this need for advocacy and awareness. And we are, a big part of the community that I represent in the North Ward is very much impacted by what Councillor Scott has alluded to. And it's just about recognition and awareness and advocacy, and there is a movement starting to just do exactly that, and some recognition of the impact that this has on farms and small business, because it's not just farmers who, if they're not spending their money, it does have a big impact on the community. So I thank Councillor Scott for his words, and there will be some further requests through ASART I hope, I just want to speak to someone about how to get items on that agenda, not just be staff driven, because and that meeting was a really great start for that. So thank you.
Thank you. That closes the debate. All those in favour? Against? Then that is carried unanimously. We're down to item 9.12, which is the Southern Communities Transport Scheme Advisory Committee minutes of the 21st of August. And there's a recommendation to receive and note the minutes. Would someone please move the recommendation? I just need one person. Thank you, Councillor Maidment. Thank you, Councillor Coomans. You've just seconded the motion. Anyone to speak to or ask a question about these minutes? If not, all those in favour? Against? Oh, did I see your hand go up, Councillor Scott? Excellent. All right, well, that's unanimous. Thank you. Now, where are we? Yes. Council members' report. So the presiding members' report, Mayor Keith Parks. There's a recommendation that his report be received. Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Could I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Livingston. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 10.2, there's a council member activity report for myself. Would someone please move the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Livingston. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Miller. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Hmm?
Yes, are there any verbal updates on the last month? Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I just want to make a bit of a mention here about an activity that happened in Strathalbyn over the weekend. And it was an art expo put on by the artists of Strathalbyn. And the art expo appealed to artists for inspiration as well as to the general public. There was good involvement from locals and visitors from both the city and interstate. The weekend helped identify Strath as an art hub, and many people came especially to meet the artists and see what was on offer. The Station Masters Gallery had over 200 visitors on the weekend. The walking trail took people on a tour of Strath through Dawson Street and High Street, showing off the town on a weekend where we had beautiful weather. There's definitely an expectation from the public that it will be held again, and I've got lots of feedback which I'll circulate to everyone, but it was initiated by the arts community and businesses, and it was hugely successful. I think it exceeded everyone's expectations. So I'll share this email that I received today, and I just wanted to make a mention of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Any further updates? Councillor Scott.
I just want to draw attention to some of the situations our staff are confronted with. I was in paying my council rates, and around at where you get planning discussions happen further round the counter, there was a fairly sizable gentleman there confronting one of our staff members about his council rates. And it went on and on and on, and so I loitered nearby, and it really struck home to me what some of our staff have to put up with in the course of their day-to-day duty. It's not nice being accused of all sorts of things and this, that and the other, and I had great admiration for the way the poor staff member held his ground. It was a he, held his ground, stood firm, explained the situation to this fairly arrogant sort of a fellow that thought he could just run roughshod over the staff member. And so I just thought I'd mention that, because we take it for granted that, you know, everything's rosy and everything goes on here, but the front of house, or those that are called to the front of house to answer questions, can sometimes have a pretty unpleasant experience, which doesn't make much for their day. And if they get it every day they come here, it can be pretty tough. So I just thought I acknowledge that.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. I think we're all very aware of what has happened over the last few years for our staff and probably for a long time. Councillor Coomans.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to mention that I had the honour of unveiling a mosaic art piece yesterday at the Mount Compass Hall. It was made by the ladies of the Lifestyle Group, and it comprised fauna and flora of the Fleurieu Peninsula, 28 different pieces, and it's huge, and it's hanging on the outside of the wall, outside wall of the Mount Compass War Memorial Community Centre. So if ever you go past, just stop and have a look at it because it looks absolutely magnificent. We want to put some protection on it because there are a few around the area who like to put their own monograms on it, and we'd prefer that if they did, we could get it off real quick. But I'd just like to share that with you.
Any further reports? Right. Thank you for that.
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.